Hey guys, welcome to the Introvert Dating Success Show. I'm your host as always, Harry Wilmington. This is the show where you go to learn how to date as your authentic introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. And we got a jam-packed show today. One of the questions I'm going to be talking about immensely in this show today is how to treat dating like you're studying for a school exam. And I wanted to talk about this extensively because there are so many guys out there that have this misconception that dating should just come naturally, and that if they don't know the ins and outs of it already, then anything they try to do to learn how to do it better is manipulating women, and it's not natural to who they are. And I always want to stress the point that everything we do in this life is learned, and dating can also be a learned skill if you really treat it seriously enough to where you can get the results that you want. And so we're going to talk about that as the main part of the show today. Of course, the show is ultimately about you guys. And so if you guys have any questions that you want answered in the comments, whether it's about your dating life or about dating in general, you can leave it in the chat and I'll be happy to get to it during the course of this show. All right. So before we get to the main crux of the show, though, I did want to talk about a few things. For starters, so I had a guy write me this week and he was asking me to look at his dating profile on Hinge so I could review it and look at it and see where he goes wrong or right. Now, I have a service available to you guys whereby if you're looking to get your dating profile examined, then for a small nominal fee, I'll be happy to review it. And then for a little bit more, I can actually help you put together a whole bio and picture thing on your dating apps that will allow you to get results. I've had friends that I've helped do this with, one of which is now married and one of which has been in a 2-year relationship. So I think I know what I'm talking about because they both met these people that they're with now on dating apps that I helped them with. Anyway, here's the thing that I've started to notice though, because I go on Reddit and I go to the Hinge app part of the thing and I look up other guys' profiles so I can study what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, and then I can talk to you guys about it on the show. But here's the thing I've started to notice. A major mistake that men are making on dating apps as it pertains to their pictures is they are not focusing on projecting the kind of lifestyle that a woman could potentially see herself being a part of. So for example, this guy, he sent me the 6 pictures and there's a picture of him standing there with a striped t-shirt on in the dark. There's a picture of him with a white shirt on, leaning back in a chair. There's another picture of him just standing at a bar. And like all these pictures of him standing someplace with some random shirt on, looking weird into the camera. And the thing is this, is that women, they are looking for reasons as to why they should swipe right on you. And so that's going to go everything from your bio to how you answer your prompts. But a big thing that's going to help with that is how your pictures look. So when a woman's looking at your pictures, if she can't envision her being a part of your world, then you're going to lose out. And so if you're just standing there in a plain t-shirt and just staring into space and there's like the atmosphere around you is not indicative of anything exciting going on or any kind of hobbies that you're into, then she's not going to be able to buy into you because she's not seeing how she's going to fit into your life and also what things she's going to be connecting herself to should she be in your life. All right. I'll give you an example. Back in 2018, I went to Australia. So when I was putting pictures on the dating apps, I had a picture of me feeding a kangaroo. That is a story because kangaroos aren't typically found in the US, which means I had to travel. So a woman seeing my profile can look at that and say, oh my gosh, he's feeding a kangaroo. That's exciting because how often does a guy get to feed a kangaroo? And also he must have traveled somewhere in order to be able to feed that kangaroo. I would have loved to go on that trip. So she can now start to envision, if I'm with this guy, I might do some traveling, whether it's to Australia or to other exciting places where I can feed all kinds of interesting animals, And so you got to think about those kind of things when you are putting pictures on your dating app. So if you're just standing there in the open void, she's not going to picture anything. But if you're have a picture of yourself where like you're surfing or you're doing putt-putt golf or you're in some kind of like checkers tournament, whatever it is, the point is when you're showing these kind of activities, she can start to say, this is the thing that he's into. I could see myself potentially buying into this guy and wanting to be with him because he seems to be actually doing things that I would like to get into. And that'll help you stand out above and beyond the majority of guys on these apps and trust me, I've been to the Hinge page on Reddit enough times to know the majority of you guys are just putting pictures that you're like, okay, this is me. And you're not really thinking about what it is you actually need to be showing to women that's going to make them more interested in you than the other 9 or 10 bozos she just swiped left on before she got to you, all right? So just something to think about, guys. And I have a whole program at my website called Smart Digital Dating that takes you through the ins and outs of how to pick the right pictures, how to create a bio that has her contacting you, how to answer prompts, how to message women on these apps to be able to get dates and actually see them in person, all right? If you need help with that, go to introvertdatingsuccess.com. So I wanted to touch on that real quick. Another thing I wanted to touch on. So there was an interesting video that I saw on TikTok that if you're looking at the video, it doesn't necessarily correlate with dating until you start to really think about what this person's saying. So Jennifer Coolidge, who's an actress, she was in American Pie, that's where she got really big, and she's been in some other stuff since then. But she was doing a talk, and somebody asked her about how to deal with self-doubt, all right? And so I thought that the answer she gave really parallels well with dating, because there are so many of you guys out there that, you know, you might have these thoughts of, well, I can't date a certain type of person, or these women are out of my league and I can't really get them. Why should I think that I'd qualify enough to be able to get these kind of women that I really want? So I want you guys to check out this video real quick so we can see what her response was to how to deal with self-doubt.
All right, I want to put it out. Well, I'm going to get a lot of hell for saying this. I want to put it out there. I know I am. This is going to be something that I might regret saying, but I think one of the best things to cure self-doubt is just to go to really bad stuff. I'm talking about plays you hear about that are terrible. Go to them. There's shows on television that are terrible. Watch them. No, because it's like, because sometimes, you know, I'll tell you how I got this idea. I was like in college, and I just hated myself, and I was so full of self-doubt. And anyway, I went to this terrible production of Oliver. And it was just literally like, Oliver, never before anything, boy, one thing more. I mean, everyone was bad in it, the whole show. I mean, it was just, and I felt like the seas had parted. Like, I felt like I had a chance in this world. You know, and not the good stuff. The good stuff is just intimidating, and you're like, how could I ever fucking do that?
She's so funny. So why am I showing you guys this particular clip? Because what she's talking about here is that she used to have self-doubt, and then she would get herself out of that by going to see these terrible, terrible things. But why would she do that? Well, because understand that these terrible things that she thought had terrible quality value to them, somebody put up money for these things. Somebody was in a writer's room when these things were being pitched or being written, and it got to air, they got to stage, which means somebody out there, in spite of how bad this thing was, somebody still believed enough in them to be like, yes, we'll produce that. And so how does this now parallel with your dating life? Well, like I said before, sometimes you may doubt whether or not you are good enough for a woman to take on. You might think that you're just the lamest guy ever, and that this girl's a hot 10, and you think you're a 4 at best, and no girl would ever want to date you. And I used to have these same thoughts about myself. And then what I started doing was I started looking out into the world, and I saw dudes that, if I'm being judgmental, were not as attractive as me, or in some cases were on the same level as me. Like, we had a similar style look. We were into kind of similar things. And those guys were able to get the women that I wanted. And I really had to start thinking about, you know, I have all this doubt on myself, and therefore I'm blocking myself from going after these women or from putting myself in spaces where they would be able to find me and want to potentially meet me and date me. And yet there are guys out there that look like me or are worse than me look-wise and maybe even lifestyle-wise. Like there was a point in time when I had like a decent job and I had money flowing in and I couldn't get a woman. And I'd see dudes that were just like bumming on the couch or living with their parents that were getting like the hottest of women. And you should be able to look at each of those scenarios and say, if that guy can get hot women, then what's holding me back? You know, if you're ever doubting in this world that no women would ever want you, if you become really observant and look at the guys around you, just go to a park one day or go to like the mall, right? And just spend like 30 minutes to an hour sitting on a bench and just looking at all the men walking by you with girlfriends or wives. And you will find there are some schlumpy guys out there that have women fawning all over him. It's just like, and a couple of weeks ago, I talked in a show about how I went to my cousin's funeral and I'm standing behind a couple where this dude's like 5'7" and the woman's like 6 foot, right? Well, most small dudes will be like, I'm small, I can't get a woman, women aren't gonna like me. And yet this dude got a pretty fairly attractive woman just in spite of his height. The only difference between that guy and you is that guy believed enough to not let her height be intimidating and still say, I still have value, I still have worth, and I'm not gonna let self-doubt prevent me from at least saying hello to this woman. And now they got a kid. So I show that video to say that you as a guy, if you have any kind of self-doubt, I assure you, there are many, many other guys out there just like you or worse that have the women that you want. The only difference is, do you believe you can get those women? If you don't, then you're the reason that you're not getting those women, not the women. All right. Just wanted to throw that out there. All right. So let's go ahead and get into the crux of the show. As I said before, guys, the show is about you. So if you have any questions you want me to answer during the course of the show, you are welcome to ask them. So I wanted to talk today about how to treat dating like you're studying for a school exam. You know, back in my mid-college days, right? I was starting to get a little bit better with women. Like I was starting to be a bit more self-confident. I was asking women on dates here and there, but ultimately I wasn't getting the results that I really wanted. Like I was still very nervous around the women that I had a high interest in, didn't know how to talk to them, didn't know how to approach them. And if I did, I'd be nervous about it. I was trying to go up to girls and tell them, oh, I really like you, thinking that that would make them realize how much they like me. Spoiler, it doesn't work that way. And so I took a break from college to go on this 5-month tour with this theater company because I was a theater major. I tried out for a kids play where I'd be going across the country performing Buffalo Soldiers with Theater 4 Productions in Richmond, Virginia. And so I took that time off and I was traveling around with 5 other dudes. And it was the first time that I had really had a chance to just hang out with a bunch of guys in concentrated effort for like 5 months straight. Like that had never really happened before. I'd been in the Boy Scouts as a kid for a little bit, but you know, those trips were like 2 or 3 days. This was like a long time to be around just dudes. And there was like, there was a gay dude on the thing and a bi dude, but the other guys on the tour were straight, right? And so these straight dudes, when we weren't doing the play, we would drive to the next town and then we'd have the night time to spend there before we got up the next day to do the play. And so these guys would go out and go to clubs and I'd go with them because I'm already on the trip. Why not? Even though I'm an introvert, I'm not staying in a hotel when I'm going state to state. I'm going to go explore the town a bit. And it was the first time I really got to be around guys in a club environment and just observe them and how they interacted with women. Because up to this point, I just been to clubs with women friends of mine, and that, you know, that's not going to be a thing that's going to result in me getting more women, you know, or being able to see how they get women because they're going there to dance by themselves and or get hit on by men. Point is, it was the first time I got to really be around guys and got to see how they interacted with women and to be able to see other men be successful at approaching them, at picking them up, at being able to talk to them, at being able to convince these new women who they just met to go back to the hotel room that we're staying in that night and do things. I'd never experienced that before. It was a totally new thing. And so that helped me see that could also be possible for me. If I had the same kind of confidence, if I still had the same kind of know-how, then maybe I could do that. But also to the point is that these guys had a lot of skill sets that I realized I did not have. I didn't know about how to approach women and these various other things that we'll talk about today that I needed to know in order to really not only be able to have a positive outcome, but to also make the experience of me approaching women enjoyable for the women that I was going to approach. And so at 21, I decided I was going to take women and study it like it was going to be, I was trying to go for the bar and try to pass an exam. And so I literally started going online. I started trying to find sources where I could study things that would allow me to get better with women, and not traditional sources where it's like, oh yeah, give her flowers, and because all the stuff like give me flowers, compliments, blah, 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 blah. Like I was doing all that stuff and I wasn't getting positive results. So a kernel of truth that I had was like, okay, therefore the stuff that I think should work probably doesn't, and I need to find out why. And that's why I wrote the book, No Girls For You, The Ultimate Guide to Losing the Girl of Your Dreams, because it really goes into why all the things you think right now should help you to get women is actually causing you to lose them. So you can get that book at the website as well. But the point is that I started studying like when I wasn't the one driving the van, or we had some rest time at these hotels in between playing Zelda, because I think Wind Waker had just come out. So I was playing a lot of Zelda back then. But when I wasn't doing that, I was studying up on and trying to figure out the ins and outs of how women communicate, how they function, what best attracts them, what least attracts them, why the things I was doing wasn't working, what things would work better, what jerks do that aren't jerky, but that women fall for, that make them feel interested in them, like a whole bunch of stuff, right? And I've been doing that since I was 21, and I'm now 41. And I'm still, now I'm a lot better at relationships and dating and reading signals and stuff like that. But I still study to this day, because to me, it's like, it's a never ending study. Women and how they function is like a never ending course. And I never want to rest on my laurels and think that I've got it all figured out. So even as I give you guys advice, I'm still reading stuff either just to check myself to make sure that I'm still on the up and up, or, as you date new women, you'll learn new things about them, and you got to figure out, okay, the ins and outs of how does this woman work and why does this person like it's a never ending study, but I find it fun and enjoyable. But I said to say that at the point that I started taking women seriously and started really like studying up on them as if it was like a class I was trying to pass, I started to slowly but surely get better results. Not necessarily in the first year, because it's just like taking math the first year. It might not be the best, but those things set the foundation for later on. So as I was studying, I would try stuff, and then I'd fall flat on my face, and then I had some really bad stuff happen, and then I had some really good stuff happen. And then over the years, as I've been able to refine and learn and whatever, I've gotten better at being able to communicate with women and be more effective at being able to date them and get into relationships. All right. And so I want to encourage that for you, is that for you at home that are thinking, well, I'm just not naturally born to know how to do all this stuff. The reality is nobody is born to naturally date. Dating itself is not actually a natural practice, because you got to think about this, right? Like if we were doing everything naturalistic, you could go up to the first woman you see and just do whatever, and she'd be down to do whatever because you guys had the animal instinct. But we're in society where there are things set up to where that we block our own selves from these various things. There's things like proper private etiquette and stuff like that. And so we just over time lose some of that instinct, which sucks. And but I said to say is that, but the things that will work in a way that's able to help you demonstrate who you are as a masculine guy and be a kind, caring guy and still be able to make the thing enjoyable for her, those are all skill sets. And I don't want you to be scared off by hearing that dating is a skill set, because to a lot of men, they'll think, well, learning a skill set to date, that sounds like I'm learning to manipulate women. And I've stressed this on the show before. Women, since they're young, have been getting taught how to manipulate us in a positive way, but like manipulate us. Like, hey, you wear this certain scent, you wear this kind of bra, you wear this kind of makeup, you say these certain things to a guy on a date, it'll really make him like feel interested in you and want to commit to you. Like women have been studying this longer than we have, but yet we don't say to them, because you studied how to put makeup on, you're manipulating me. Oh my God. So if you as a guy are able to study up on the ways that women are best attracted to you, and then you do those things, then she'll be more apt to want to learn the real version of you and experience the real version of you in a way that's going to benefit you overall. All right. So with that said, I'm going to go over a brief listing of just a few examples of some of the things that if you're trying to study up women, you really need to study up on to make sure that you're going to be able to know, just get a small idea of the ins and outs of what they need in order to feel attracted to you. All right. So these are things like learning how to approach. You need to learn how to not be so anxious and afraid, and how to actually approach women in a way that is non-threatening. Too many guys do one or two things. They either do the too forceful approach, which is, hey, baby, cutie, sweetie, oh my God, you're so hot, I want to bang you right now, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't really work all that well. Or you have guys that do the opposite, where they're apprehensive and want to be like, hey, so I just want to, how you doing? And they get really timid about it. You don't want to be that guy either. None of those guys are doing good approaches, but you need to learn the middle ground of how to approach women that's not going to be so abrasive, but is going to still allow her to be open to the idea of you contacting and communicating with her, which leads to the next thing, which is learning how to communicate with women. Now, when most guys here learn how to do better communication, we strictly think about verbal skills. I got news for you. Women live in a world where they do a lot of passive communication in order to get their point across. So if you're not able to read that when a woman says fine, that it doesn't mean she's fine because you're hearing her words, but not looking at what her body is doing when she says it, then you need to start studying up on what are verbal ways that women show attraction and show disappointment and show anticipation and show anxiety. Like knowing those things in addition to learning verbal skills will help you immensely. Another thing to learn that when you're trying to get to know women better is how to flirt. Women want you to flirt with them, and not every flirtatious interaction is going to equal her wanting to sleep with you, but flirting is a fun and vibrant way for you to be able to interact with the woman that's going to make her see you as a fun guy that she could potentially go on a date with. Another thing that you need to learn is leadership skills. Most women across the board want to date a guy that knows how to be a leader and knows how to make a plan of action for her, for the relationship, for the potential family, etc. So if you don't have that skill, that's going to be an example of something that you need to study up on. What kind of leadership skills are women looking for? What kind of guy is a woman going to be more apt to submit to versus a guy that she sees and is just like, oh, he's wanting me to wear the pants. I got to get out of here. Another thing you need to study up on with women is your hookup skills. Yes, you don't have to be like the dynamoist guy in the bedroom, but you do need to know like where parts go, what her erogenous zones are, what things are going to feel good when you press them one way versus another way, angles. All these things are going to result in her recognizing that you have enough skill sets to really turn her on in the bedroom, and it's going to make her want to come back for more and more of those things because knowing how to hook up with somebody is very important. Another thing you need to learn is masculine traits women find attractive. There are too many guys out there that unfortunately grew up under either like single moms, or in my case, my dad died. So I had my mom, my grandma, my aunt. And admittedly, if you're around that long enough, you start to learn some bad habits. And some of those bad habits can be very effeminate. And women are going to be able to tell that when they're interacting with you. And so that's unfortunate. It'd be great if you could be a guy that's like, hey, whether I'm effeminate or masculine, a woman should like me for who I am. That is not the reality we live in. The reality we live in is that women are going to be more apt to choose the guy that is displaying more masculine traits early on than feminine traits. Now, you might down the line be able to do some stuff that's a bit more feminine leaning, but for early on, you need to figure out, okay, what masculine things across the board are women looking for? I mentioned leadership earlier, flirting, like those things are examples of, can you do those things in a masculine way that's going to turn her on? Another thing you need to learn is grooming and style. Yes, learn how to put together an outfit, learn how to iron, learn how to style your hair. If you're, I'm starting to bald up here, so I keep my hair short, but know what hairstyle works best for you. Learn about cologne, learn about shoes, learn about these various things so that way when women first see you, they're going to be more likely to want to approach you versus the other way around. Another thing you need to learn and study up on is texting. I have done so many videos and have gotten so many messages from guys talking about how they're texting a girl and then she starts to fall off. And the reason for that is that most of you do not know how to text. I have a whole book on my website called Texting Like a Boss, which is 21 commandments for the ins and outs of texting. And it's based on the fact that I also struggled with texting at one point. And then once I realized, hey, you know what? There's a method to the madness, then I was able to get better results to where now, even when I'm in relationships, I don't text all that often, but I know how to do texting that is important. I know how to do texting that's effective, and I know how to do texting that can still cause a woman to be turned on, all right? So that's stuff you need to study up on. Another thing, emotional intelligence. Too many men get in their feelings when women are doing things or bringing things to your attention, and you need to start working from a place of, how can you better understand her emotions? How can you better understand your emotions? And how can you be less reactive and more stoic when things are going on? If you're a guy that freaks out because she didn't respond back to a text after 2 or 3 hours, I got news for you. You are not emotionally intelligent enough to deal with any woman, because women are going to be flaky at times, and they're going to be wishy-washy, and they'll ebb and flow based on their emotions. And if you're not prepared to deal with that, then you're going to lose women. And another example of something to study up on with women is how to build interest. See, men have this problem of thinking that you go on a date, you go on a second date, after 2 dates, you're like, this woman's hot. I've had good conversations, maybe a hookup or a kiss. She's the one for me. And our interest is already there very, very quickly after a couple of meetups. So we assume women come to the conclusion about us in the same way. And I tell you guys, women take 2 to 3 months to solidify their feelings. And part of that comes from the things that you're doing in the course of those 2 to 3 months. If you're coming to after 2 dates and saying we should be in a relationship, you have not built up interest enough. So you have to learn the skill of not only building interest, but being able to read where her interest is. The great late Doc Love talked about percentages. He would always say, like, when a woman goes on a date with you, a good sign is if it starts at 51%, but the goal is to get her to like 80 or 90% where you can do no wrong. So within that scale of 51% to like 95%, there is a long range of ways that a woman's going to act based on where her interest is at. And then depending on where it's at, you should know when to do certain things and when to be patient and back off. If you do not know how to do that, then that is a skill set you can learn. And I can help with that. You go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and sign up for one of my programs. So with that said, that's just a small amount of examples of things that you as a guy need to be studying up on as it pertains to women in order to get the results that you want. So the question becomes now, okay, great. So if you're going to be studying up on women, how can you effectively treat this as if you're studying for an exam? Well, I got 6 ways that you can go about treating the study of women and dating in general as if you're studying for an exam. So the first way to do that, the first way to treat studying women like you're studying for an exam is to set goals for yourself. What skill sets are you lacking currently that you need to learn in order to better equip yourself for the dating world? You need to figure out what those things are and then set goals and timetables for how you're going to achieve them. So for example, if you're bad with, we'll just use approaching. If you're bad with approaching women, okay, you might have to make it a goal to be able to either approach X amount of women per day in order to get comfortable with it. Or you might say, okay, I need to get rejected like 49 times in order to get a date the 50th time. So if your goal is, I need to ask out 50 women to get 1 date, then your approach goal is to approach 49 women. But you need to have realistic goals you can set for yourself, so that way you can incrementally start to get better at notching each of these goals. Because once you get better with approaching, for example, then the next thing is going to be, okay, great. Now, how do I talk to a woman enough? How do I communicate with her in a conversation to make her feel lively and bubbly around me? The next goal might be, okay, great. Now, how do I actually ask for the number? Now, how do I ask for the date? Now, how do I figure out what kind of date to take her on? And by the way, these are steps that I all lay out in my program, the Introvert Dating Success Academy, which is also available at the website. So after setting a goal, the second step in studying women like you're studying for an exam is to prepare and research. You need to do a deep dive into for example, approaching. You need to do a deep dive into, approaching women. What kind of approaches do women respect and what kind of ones do they not respect? What things are most effective and what things are going to scare them away? You need to research that thoroughly and then start to prepare for, okay, what are the ways in which you're going to try to do an approach, for example? What things you're going to say? How are you going to approach them? Whether it's like you're walking from behind, you're walking up front at them, you're coming in from the side, like, in what ways are you going to prepare yourself for this? Are you going to have a certain type of clothes on or wear a certain type of cologne to make yourself feel confident? Either way, preparing and researching are going to be vital steps that you need to take in order to treat this as though it's like studying for an exam. The third way to treat studying women like you're studying for an exam is to become an active listener. You need to really start listening to, I almost want to say, start listening to what women want out of relationships, but that's not actually what I want you to do, because women will say the things that they think they want, but then they'll actually go for other things. And so what the real exercise is to start asking women about guys that they dated in the past, what drew them to those guys, how long they stayed with those guys, maybe why it did or did not work out, but start listening to a woman's actual history about her dating life and not the stuff that she wishes would happen. And you'll start to get a more realistic idea of the kinds of things that women are legitimately looking for in relationships. Now, this also goes to if you're dating a woman and like she's already in the throes of dating you and she's expressing needs of things or things that are making her feel emotional or things that she's having problems with you. This is the time where you don't want to be that guy that's trying to just like brush off everything, because there's going to be times that women tell you stuff and you're thinking, that's not a thing. That can't be true. How dare you feel that way? But in the moment, whatever they're saying is real to them and it's coming from a real place. So the more you start being less deflective and the more you start actively saying, wait a minute, she's saying something that to her has merit. let me see where this is coming from, you'll start to get a better understanding of the female psyche and how they think about things. Even if stuff you disagree with, you'll get an idea of how they think about things, how they come to conclusions, and that's going to allow you to get a better understanding of how to approach them later on, should you have your own things to discuss with them. So it's a very, very important exercise to do. The fourth way to study women as if you're studying for an exam is to practice, practice, practice. Look, you watching these videos, fantastic. You reading my various things, great. You going to different forums and discussing with other guys about things they're doing, awesome. None of that is actually getting out to the real world. I know as you as an introvert might be thinking, man, I wanted to sit home and have a woman come to me. I don't want to go out there and have to do all this work. I assure you, as an introvert myself, I will say this, is that early on, the work can be at times nerve-wracking or anxiety-inducing, but I'm at a place now where that stuff is actually fun for me. And the reason it's fun is because I now have a pathway to be able to interact with women in a positive way that gets me the results that I want. But that all came from practicing. And you got to start somewhere. You got to practice that approach. You got to practice that flirtation. You got to practice asking women on dates and not asking them for their input. These are all things that are not going to feel natural or going to cause anxiety early on. I promise you, as you do these things more and more, it'll get easier and easier. More importantly, you'll start to make mistakes, which is great because the only way you can really truly learn is to feel these tactile mistakes so you can actually feel like, oh crap, I messed up. I may not do that again. Or, oh my God, I fell flat on my face. My approach didn't work and she walked off. So I know not to approach like that anymore. And as you do this more and more, you'll start to find that this becomes A, a fun exercise, and B, you start to get really good at it because you start to learn what not to do. Which is why I wrote a whole book about what not to do with women, because I want you to read that book first before you start to figure out what to do with women, because we need to get you rid of bad habits, all right? But yeah, if you do that stuff, then you'll find that as you practice more, you'll become more comfortable. The fifth way to start studying women as if you're studying for an exam is to learn to be flexible. We're all emotional to some extent, but women especially, they can change like night and day. They might feel overly hype about you one day, and the next day they might be, in their period, or might be feeling some other emotional thing where they're not as into you as they were, and you can't let that jar you. You might have plans to take her someplace, and in the last minute she says, oh, I got to cancel, or oh, I want to go here instead. You can't let that jar you. You have to become a guy that is ultimately indifferent to a variety of things that are going on in your dating world, whether it's she flakes out last minute, whether she cancels, whether she suddenly brings a friend along that you didn't anticipate. Like, all these things are going to happen. Or you might have a plan for a date and she has a better plan. I don't want you to be that guy that's like, no, we got to stick to my plan because I'm the guy and blah, 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 blah. Like, you need to be a guy that ultimately is cool, calm, and collected, and is able to go with the flow. Not on all things. If you have certain principles that you stand by, then I don't want you to flex on those things. But most things in relationships aren't so super serious that you can't tend to lean a bit or be flexible every so often, But in studying women, you have to understand that the things you're studying, part of that's going to be if she changes her mind on something, if she has an emotional thing that happens to her, like what's going to happen. And the more comfortable you become with that, then the more she's going to see you as the rock she can lean on when her world's going like this. And that's what we want ultimately, And then the sixth way to start studying up on women as if you're studying for an exam is to reflect, analyze, and learn. So you're going to go out on these dates. You're going to try these approaches. You're going to try your leadership skills. You're going to try texting her a certain way, and things are either going to go great or they're going to go awful. In either scenario, you want to look back and say, okay, so, let's take the texting example, right? You met a new girl, you text her every single day, and by the 14th day, she stops talking to you. Happens all the time because I get those messages all the time, right? So you reflect, okay, I texted her every day, and now she's no longer interested. Now, if I think back to this previous girl, I only texted her like once or twice a week, and she was all over me. So if I'm reflecting on that, now you go to the analyze part. Okay, so analyzing these two scenarios, is it going to be better for me to text a woman a lot or text a woman from time to time? And then you can learn from that. Okay, I'm learning more and more that texting less results in a woman liking me a lot longer. Maybe I should try texting less. And this actually is an example that I did where it's like, once I started texting women less, I got better results. I got women texting me a lot faster and texting me more often. And I was able to get into relationships and keep them longer because I wasn't constantly in front of her face electronically when I was trying to date her. And so that's just a small example of how this process works. But yeah, if you start to treat this treat studying women like you're studying for an exam, whereby you're setting goals, you're preparing and researching, you're doing active listening, you're practicing, you're learning to be flexible, and then you're reflecting, analyzing, and learning, you're going to find your results to women start to go up, because right now you might be in a space where maybe you don't have the most success with women, but as you're studying, part of studying means you have to put yourself out there. As you put yourself out there, you're doing new things, you're trying new things, and you're becoming more comfortable with doing those things. And you becoming comfortable is ultimately what's going to get you women, because women want to be around a guy that feels comfortable, isn't anxious, knows his worth, knows that in the grand scheme of things, if this works out, great. If it doesn't, it's not a big deal. You're indifferent. And that makes women feel less pressured to have to choose you, which now makes it their choice. And now they want to choose you and they want to go after you. And as I always say, if they're chasing you, they can't be replacing you. And you know the guys that women chase? The ones that have studied them enough to know what they want. So you become that guy, then I promise you, you will get way better results in your dating life, all right? So hopefully, guy, that helps you out. All right. So now we're going to get into some of these various questions that I've gotten through the course of the week and answered either on my YouTube page, in my Gmail, or at Reddit. As always, guys, this show is ultimately about you. So if during the course of the show you have any questions you want me to answer, leave them in the chat and I will get to them. There's a guy that commented that said, we grow together. Yeah, ultimately, yeah, when you're in a relationship, like, you're going to have some growth and she's going to have some growth. And hopefully, as you guys are going along each other's pathways, you're going to help each other grow in these various ways. But as a guy, you still need to come in already having at least established yourself in terms of like knowing your self-worth, having confidence, and, you know, knowing that you can really take this relationship to the next level. Because guys that don't have that, it means that the woman has to lead the relationship. And I found across the board, even the most strong-headed boss babe doesn't want to lead her relationship. So yes, you're growing together, but you should already feel somewhat confident in yourself when you're going into these things. If you don't, I can help you with that at introvertdatingsuccess.com. So let's go ahead and get into some of these questions. So this person said, me and my crush have been flirting and being a bit more physical, like giving each other hugs. And I feel like I need to ask her out soon before she loses interest and end up in the friend zone because I played hard to get for too long. Everyone says that it's just not that hard to ask somebody out. All you have to do is go up to them and ask them. But I just feel like it isn't that easy and is a bit more complicated. I feel like you have to do it at the perfect moment, at the perfect time, in the perfect place so that you can ensure that they say yes. But where is this mystical perfect place? Do you think it's really easy, just as hard as I think, or maybe even more complicated? So I don't know how old this guy is, but here's what I found, right? Is that early on in your dating life, it's going to be a thing where your anxiety about having to get it right and your nervousness at the prospect that this woman may reject you is going to result in you delaying asking a woman out. The other thing that's going to do that is you thinking that in order to get a date with the woman, you have to go up to her and say, hey, so just so you know, I really like you. I think I have feelings for you and we should go out. And so many guys put the cart before the horse. They think they got to express feelings in order to get a date. I got news for you, guy. Women read passive language very easily. They know at the point that you approached her and were looking at her and then looking away that you were anxious and nervous. At the point that you say, let's go on a date, she knows you're interested. And you know what? It took me a lot of years to realize like that's totally fine. It's totally fine if a woman, based on your question, feels as though you might have an interest. The problem lies in that too many guys are going up trying to really give her an idea of how much interest they have. And that's not what we're trying to do. Like when you ask a woman out, she's like, okay, he's interested, but I don't know at what level. And that's the part where you don't tell that part. You don't tell her at what interest your level is. And realistically, most of it's lust, not really like. So even your level of like, you should question because you're like, yeah, she has the body that I like and she smells great, but you don't actually have enough time spent with her to really, really know how much you like her beyond just her looks and maybe like one or two conversations and how good she smells, right? So I try to tell guys, you can really rid your anxiety by start thinking more logically about this, right? This is why I tell you guys, treat dating more like a research project whereby you're like, okay, I feel these things. I feel these tinglies. I think she's attractive. This should be your sign that you're motivated to find out more about her, not that you have a full-blown on interest in her, all right? But the other thing is this, is that ultimately there is no right place, right time, whatever, right? And when you first approach a woman, your goal, you don't have to ask her out like right away. There's a whole sequence and method to the madness. You can actually get my dating freebie it's a dating freebie that's a girlfriend roadmap checklist on like the ins and outs of what to do when you first meet a woman, how to approach her, how to greet her, how to get her on a date, all those other things, right? But suffice to say, you going up to her and saying, I like you, let's go on a date. That's how this works, right? You need to start by having a conversation, maybe having a little banter, maybe getting her information to see if you can get her information first. See if she will give you her number to hit her up later. If you don't get that, then all your feelings you're having right now, you're wasting on this person because they could be going to somebody else, right? But do that part first, right? And then per the lesson I just talked about, learn actions that you can do every single time for every single woman you meet. Because here's the reality, guys, is that you guys are all treating these new women that you're trying to date or whatever as like the most specialist thing in the world. And this isn't going to necessarily be like the nicest thing to say, but like all women are the same across the board. When you first meet them, that is. When you first meet a woman, every woman should be treated the exact same because you do not know them. They are a stranger. They are a new entity. And in spite of you finding them overly attractive and how they look, you don't know anything about this woman any more than you know about this ugly woman over here. So I say that because I want you guys to have a level head. You go in with every woman saying across the board, I don't know her. She looks great, but I don't know her, but I want to get to know her. So now I'm gonna go up to her. Let's have a conversation. Okay. I like what she's talking about. She seems to have a really nice laugh. Okay. So next step. Okay, great. So get the number. Oh, give me the number. Fantastic. I'm going to hit her up, have a combo with her, and then see if we go on a date. And each of these steps should be, in my head, more analytical than emotional. The less you're trying to tune into feelings to get a girl, the better results you're going to have, because women can rely on their feelings. That they're built that way, and they can handle doing that and analyzing us from an emotional place a lot better than we can. You trying to analyze a woman from an emotional place is going to mess you up every time. But if you're analytical about it and you're like, okay, she could be special, but not yet. Okay, I might have feelings for her, but not yet. Let me fully analyze the entire situation before I just go in and have all these feelings. You're going to find it keeps you more control. It keeps you more stoic. It keeps you with an indifferent attitude. And these features are the ones that women actually want to see from guys that they're attracted to in the first place. So you win out if you're not overly anxious and overly feely in the beginning. Now, as you get to know her, you can start to display more and more feelings, but you really want to rely more on her to do that because that's more of an effeminate trait. Sorry to say, I know some of you guys out there are extra emotional, and it sucks that women don't want to see that across the board from guys that they just start dating, but that's generally true. So try to be that guy. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, so that answers that question. Next up, we have this person. I think it's the same questions. Oh, okay. So this guy wrote me, he said, I literally can't even imagine myself trying to go up to a girl and ask to give her my number or anything else. To explain my situation, I'm an introvert who likes to play video games and hates to go to parties. I never had any romantic relationship in my life, and I believe I will never have one. And to be honest, I think I'm some kind of weird kid who always gets looked at with disgust. I'm quite tall, but I have a small belly. Now that it's settled, let's continue. During all my life, I never had the audacity to ask a girl out, and I think it's for the better. All the girls I got interested in said they weren't interested in me. And then in parentheses, he says, not directly to me, but I heard it several times myself. He says, thanks to that, I never even held hands with someone romantically. Could you explain how you approach people and don't get looked down at? Is it just a coincidence, or is it because you work out or anything else? Please tell me. This goes back to what I talked about earlier. Practice. In the beginning, you're going to have a nervous approach style. You just are. Like if you haven't done this before, you trying to approach women, you're going to be too anxious. Every scenario where you try to approach a woman is going to feel like this approach has to work. And if it doesn't work, my life's going to be devastating. And if you only have like one or two prospects you're doing that to, you're going to always feel that. Now, if you have 30 or 40 prospects you're doing that to, then you can say, well, those first 5 prospects are probably going to reject me. So let's just go get those out the way. And then somewhere down the line, one of these 30 or 40 are going to say yes. But that comes with practice and being willing to put yourself out there. But more to this guy's point, because I wrote this guy back, and basically I said, like when I was 21, 22, I hadn't figured it out. I was still a virgin in my early 20s for quite a bit of years. And so it took me a while to get comfortable with the idea, A, that women would like me. And that's something that people don't talk about, is that if you've been going your whole life thinking that women don't like you, there is a jarring shift that happens when you suddenly start to realize that there are some women out there that actually find you attractive. And the switch is that you have a self-identity as the weird kid that can't get women. And now you have something out there that's showing you interest, and it's freaking you out subconsciously because you don't know how to deal with that. You're very used to dealing with, if women don't like me, that's totally fine. They're never going to like me anyway. I know how to operate in that mode. But you haven't had the practice of operating in the mode of, what if a woman does like you? What if she wants to hook up with you? Now you got to have a whole new set of skills that you don't have. You don't know how to hook up with a woman. You don't know how to playfully flirt. You don't know how to respond back when she calls you cute or handsome. And that's something that doesn't get talked about, is that is also a learned skill set that if you haven't been dating long enough, you don't have. So there's a part of your subconscious that could be holding you back from dating success because it doesn't actually know what it's going to do should it get the success that you think you're wanting, you know? And there were a few years there where I had to figure that out, where it's like, okay, I'm finally got past where I've had a hookup, but I still feel kind of awkward and weird. And then I don't know if it'll happen again. And I don't know still, like, if that was just a fluke, or like all these questions are going to come into your head, you know? But to the point, you know, the part where he says he never had the audacity to ask a girl out, I said, that's your biggest problem, is that you're looking at, because you don't have the experience of actually going up to women and asking them out, all you're living on is fear. You're saying, well, I don't want to approach because rejection hurts. And rejection, although it's not a physical punch, it feels like a gut punch anytime you get rejected. And so our bodies are designed to try to protect us. And so if it feels as though it's going to get punched, i.e. it's going to get rejected, it's going to do everything it can to convince you not to do the thing that's going to get it hurt the most, which in this case is rejection. So for starters, you got to bypass the part of your programming that's going to try to protect you by not wanting to approach. And then you have to change that and say, okay, you know what? Rather than not approaching, what if I go in expecting the gut punch, but it's only going to happen for a limited time? And you know what? I have to get through like 30 gut punches to get one date. Is it worth it? Then you go into a scenario where your brain shifts to where you almost anticipate and look forward to getting rejections, as long as it's going to get you to your end goal. And that also comes with not putting any one particular woman on a pedestal, because in the process of this, you're going to approach some women that you wish to God would work. And you have to go in knowing that there's a really high chance it's probably not going to, but if this one doesn't work out, there's a better one down the road. So if you want to get down the road, you got to go through this woman, through this woman, through this woman. You got to hear no, no, no in order to eventually get to where you want to get. And I started approaching it that way in college. Like I had a whole thing where I was like, okay, when I was like 20, 21, I was like, you know what? I've gone 2 years of college now. I've had no dates. I got to get out of this funk. I got to like put myself out there more. And I said, okay, you know what? I have some women that I know around campus, they're just in passing or associates or whatever. I'm going to ask out like 10 women this week. And I expect to get 9 no's. But I'm thinking if I ask out 10 women, inevitably, at least one's got to say yes, right? So I said, I'll just try it out. So I'd go to women. And what I'd say, hey, so I want to start going on dates. I need some practice. Would you be open to going on a date with me so I can get to practice it? That was my whole spiel. So I figured if I say the practice, then they'll at least say yes. So I did that to the first girl, and she said no. She said no, she didn't want to do it. But she was very nice. She said, oh, no, I got a boyfriend or whatever, this blah, blah, bullshit, bull crap. But thank you. It was really nice. So the first thing I learned was like, okay, that rejection, I didn't like the no part, but she said it nicely, so I don't feel like it was too bad of a gut punch. And then the next 3 girls I asked out, same spiel, hey, I'd love to take you out. I'm trying to practice dating. Can I take you on a date? All 3 girls said yes. And I was shocked. Now, fast forward to in my late 30s, I had a friend of mine move out here that stayed in the dorm where I went, where most of the girls that I hung out with were. And she told me that, yeah, a good portion of the women in that dorm had crushes on me. And I had no idea. Why? Because I couldn't see it. But also because I wasn't approaching any of them. I wasn't putting myself out there to let it be known that I'd be willing to date them. And so, but that whole asking for dates thing taught me that, oh, so a lot of this rejection that I think I'm going to get is in my head. Like the women that I thought were going to reject me across the board said yes to dates. So the only thing that was preventing me from getting dates with these women in the first place was me. I wasn't making the approach. I was nervous. I was apprehensive, and I wasn't asking for the dates. And if I just asked for more dates in college, I would have dated more women. But that's not how my dating life ended up in college, right? But I got better later. But the point is that, yeah. So I said to this guy, go out there expecting rejection, but also be prepared to be surprised that you're not going to get rejected nearly as much as you thought, if only you would put in the time to realistically do that. And also figure out a way to approach women that's not going to be overly brash. Figure out ways that you can approach them in a respectful way, and that you can talk to them. You can ask them, hey, I'm trying to find directions to this place, and lead that to a conversation. Like, I think, especially if you're like a so-called recovering nice guy, I think a lot of it stems from we don't want to be the jerks. And we see so-called jerk guys approach women in all these ways that we find like heinous and not respectable. And even though they're getting these women to say yes and go out with them, but we feel like, oh, they should have done X, Y, and Z. And there's something to be said about the boldness of jerks to at least try. Like, because they're like, if this doesn't try, screw her, I'll find somebody else. And I think that frame of attitude needs to be put on to nice guys, because you need to have the same feeling of like, okay, I'm going to go up to her respectfully and say what's up and try to get her number. But if she says no, no harm, no foul. And I think women can tell that if they don't give a nice guy her number or say yes to a date, that is going to be devastated. And that's why they'll give fake numbers and ghost, because they can see in us that we're going to be overly hurt and that we're too attached to this outcome. The less attached you look and appear to be to outcomes, the better your dating skills are going to be, So hopefully, guy, that answered his question. All right, guys, more questions on the way. Like I said, if you have any questions you want me to answer, leave them in the chat and I'll be happy to answer them live. Let's see, another person here. Okay, so this guy had a situation going on. He said, I met a client in person, and after her appointment, I sent her a professional text asking how she felt. She responded positively and then unexpectedly invited me for a drink. We started as friends, but eventually we started dating despite my initial resistance. Interesting how in this scenario, the guy is the one that is being resistant, all right? And because of that, because he's showing indifference, because he's being resistant, he's not trying to force her into something, that's causing her to come to him and ask him out and take him on stuff. And what do I always tell you guys? If she's chasing you, she can't be replacing you. So anyway, he says, our relationship was blissful for 3 months, and she expressed how much she appreciated how well I treated her, especially after her past abusive relationships. So far, so good, but what happens next? However, suddenly, she seemed to change overnight. Her text messages became less frequent, devoid of the usual affectionate emojis, and she canceled our plans. I want to pause and say this because I get a lot of messages from guys saying like, oh, things were going great, and all of a sudden things shifted. Now, I do believe that can happen. Sometimes maybe she just all of a sudden decides she's not feeling it. What I typically find is in these scenarios, most men are leaving out key details that would better explain why a woman suddenly stopped being so available or start to lose interest. For example, a lot of guys will say, we were texting back and forth and things are great. And then all of a sudden she just stopped texting me. What's going on? And I asked them, were you texting her like every day, all day? Well, yeah. That detail would help me better understand why she lost interest, because you were too available. So when I hear these stories, I'm always like, I wish I could really talk with this person and get a better analytics on what was going on, because I could see like what kind of dates they were going on, how often they were talking to each other, what kind of conversations they were having. At any time, was he showing any jealousy towards her hanging out with any male friends or female friends? Like, all those details really paint a better picture for me of being able to analyze what was actually going on. So for now, we just take him at his word, which is like everything was fine. And then all of a sudden she was just texting less. But there's more often than not, it's not just like woman's interested, and then all of a sudden, boom, nosedive. Usually there are things that a guy can be unaware of that he's doing that are causing her to start losing interest. So if you can't figure that kind of stuff out, hit me up. I'll be happy to analyze your situation and help you figure this whole thing out. Anyway, he says, Saturday afternoon came the breakup text, which was long. But basically it said, quote, I have to break up with you because I can't get used to how good you are to me. It's really weird. This isn't the way guys normally treat me. I like you way too much, and relationships aren't supposed to be this smooth. You're freaking me out. I need a rougher relationship that I have to really work hard to make it feel worthwhile. I was stunned. I tried to explain that it's okay, and now practically everyone wishes they had such a smooth relationship. But she didn't want to hear it. Her mind was made up, and that was it. I'm now confused and depressed. I wasn't even looking for a relationship in the first place, but she pursued me and then ended things because it was going too well. Does this mean that even a good relationship can be a problem? I'm unsure about what to think or how to move forward. Well, for starters, I'll say this, is that surprisingly, guy, this is a very common thing. Because just like I tell you guys, I said earlier how if you haven't had the practice of dating, then at the moment that women start to show you interest, it's going to be really, really weird for you because you're going to be thinking, oh my God, like a woman actually likes me. And that's fighting with your reality of, but women find me weird and strange. This can't be a thing, right? So this is the same thing that happens with women, whereby a woman will have this dating life, right? Where she's dated losers, jerks, people that have scammed her, people that have abused her, all sorts of things. And she's saying to herself, I just want a nice guy that's going to treat me well, blah, 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 blah. But at the point that a woman gets that, she realizes she doesn't actually have the skill set to deal with a guy that actually has emotional intelligence and has his stuff together and is not trying to fight her. And more importantly, she also realizes that a part of her is still connected to what makes her most comfortable. And what makes her most comfortable up to this point is being in relationships that have turmoil, because it's like it's the personal hell theory. Even though she doesn't really like how she's treated in those scenarios, it's what she best knows, and it's what she knows how to operate best in. So you're going to come across women, guys, that they're spouting all this, I want a good guy bull crap, and I'm tired of these guys treat me wrong. And then you're going to be that guy, and she's going to think to herself one or two things. Either she's going to be thinking, this is too good to be true, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, and she's going to be constantly anxious. Or at the moment that you slip up at all, she's going to be doubly on you like, see, I knew it. I was just waiting for this to happen, blah, blah. And now anytime she looks at you, you could have made one or two mistakes and been like, hey, babe, my bad. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do X, Y, and Z. She's not going to believe your apology. And she's going to be thinking, I knew it. You're just like all the other guys overall. And you're going to be trying to fight to get back to a good place. And you're never going to, because she's going to always be thinking, you're going to be this guy that keeps making mistakes or does me wrong, and it's a wrap, you know? And so these are scenarios where the worst thing you could do is try to fight against the narrative in her head. I have actually found, this is going to sound weird, I have found it is almost better to go along with her narrative so she can start looking at how dumb her narrative actually is. So for example, here, right? If this had been me, if she come to me and said, hey, so I got to break up with you. Okay, why is that? Because, you know, the way you treat me is just too nice, and you know I like it too much, and this relationship is too smooth, and you're freaking me out, and I think I need something different, blah, 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 blah. My response had been like, okay, well, hey, you know, I really like you. I thought we had a good thing going, and all right, if you change your mind, let me know, but otherwise, best of luck to you. And I'm out. Now, why would that be my response? That would be my response because it makes her, most guys are going to fight her on it. She's expecting a fight. She's expecting a guy to be like, but no, you got to stay around, blah, 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 blah. So when I'm the guy that does not do that, one, it's fighting against the narrative idea she had in her head of how this fight's going to go, right? And then the second thing is she's going to now go back to her girlfriends, right? She's going to go to her girlfriends and say, well, me and so-and-so broke up. What? How? What? You broke up? Why? And she's going to be like, well, I told him that, you know, I just told him that he was too nice and he was treating me too good, and you know, just the relationship was working too smooth. And I just need something that was a bit harder. And her girlfriends, if she has smart girlfriends, are going to be like, oh, okay, but isn't that like healthier? Isn't that what you wanted? And then what did he say? And then her response is going to be, well, you know what? He said, best of luck to me, and if I change my mind, then like come back or let me know. And the girlfriend's gonna be like, oh, he actually responded to that pretty well. Like, is that the response you were expecting? I mean, I guess not really. Like, I thought he was gonna fight for me, blah, 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 blah. Wow, it sounds like he's a guy that doesn't really like a lot of drama. What do you mean? Well, you bring a lot of drama into your relationships. And so here's a guy that doesn't bring drama, and you're the one bringing the drama. And now she has to sit with that and think about if that's the person she wants to be, and if what she's doing is like really, really dumb. Because here's the thing also, you doing that, it shows her, as you should be showing the whole time, that you're ultimately indifferent. Like, you want what's going to work best for you, but you also want what's going to work best for her. If she decides for whatever dumb reason she has that you being calm, cool, and collected isn't what she wants, that's a decision she can make. But she has to explain it to everybody. Everybody across the board is going to be like, that's stupid. Like, what are you doing? And so by you not fighting on that scenario, it makes you look like the more mature one and the one that looks like he knows what he's doing. And I've dated women before where it's like, I've had that same commentary. Oh, you're being too nice, blah, 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 blah. My response is always like, well, I can treat you worse if you want me to. Oh, no, don't do that. Why? Because that now sounds stupid. If I'm saying I can treat you worse, or I could do less for you, or I can stop calling you as much, like now she's thinking, oh, he actually is like cool with that, but that sounds dumb. Yeah, it sounds dumb when you as the guy verbally saying back to her the dumb stuff that she's saying to you. Oh, you want to break up because it's too calm? Okay, cool. That's weird to me, but okay, whatever. Like, she has to reckon with that. And some women, honestly, you give them that speech, they might still be like, I want to go through the breakup, and they might go on and date other jerks and whatever like that. And unfortunately, it's sad that a lot of women don't learn until later on in their dating life, like in their 30s and 40s, like, oh, that guy that I dated that was nice to me back in the day, I should have gotten with him. Oh, he's married now. Oh, that sucks. But some women are gonna miss out on a good thing. And you know what? You have to be fine with that. But ideally, you have an abundance mindset to where if this scenario doesn't work out, there are other women out there. And I'm telling you guys, there are women out there that actually want calm, cool, collected, indifferent guys. That want introverted guys. That want guys that aren't trying to set up a fight all the time when they have a discussion or a disagreement. Like, those women out there exist, but there are a lot of women out here that unfortunately have learned bad habits or grew up in bad surroundings that are used to trauma and chaos being their normal mode of operandi. And you know what? If a woman tells you that, hey, this woman was upfront. She's basically saying, I need to date a guy that has as much trauma as I do. If you're not a guy that has a lot of trauma, great. Get rid of her. If you're a guy that has a lot of trauma, work on your trauma. Don't be stuck in your trauma, and don't date women that also have trauma to bring to you. All right. But ultimately, this woman did this guy a favor. But yeah, if a woman comes to you with this stuff saying, hey, you're being too nice, or this and that, one, you can say, well, I can do less. And also you can just be like, okay, well, you change your mind, and then see how she reacts. I'm telling you, if I have found agreeing with a woman who's breaking up with you, I found that scenario results in more women trying to come back to you than if you're trying to fight them to stay. But then the question also is, but do you want to take a woman back like that? I found typically my answer is no, but your results may vary. Anyway, hopefully, guy that helps you out. Let's see. We got another question on here. This guy said, he says, I recently started dating again. A few months ago, I had a brief but meaningful situationship with a woman who I never saw as a long-term potential partner. We didn't have much in common, but we really hit it off, and the physical attraction was high. Following a few months out after that ended, I reconnected with a woman who is basically everything I'm looking for in a long-term partner, but I just don't fancy her that much. When we were first intimate, I didn't really want it to progress much further. I know she'd be good for me long-term, and sexual attraction shouldn't be the most important factor when considering a life partner. I just feel like it's quite important for me at the moment. I'd be keen to hear your perspective on this matter and whether you've encountered it before, and also whether you feel that attraction can build over time. My thing is this, is that I don't like when guys downplay how important sexual attraction is, because yes, as you're in a relationship and it goes on longer, there's going to be other things that are maybe more important, whether it's like, bills, kids, where you live, yada, yada, yada. But if your mate is not sexually attracted to you and you're not sexually attracted to your mate, there are going to be a lot of problems, because if you're not attracted to her, let's say you're not attracted to her and she has a high libido, you're going to have a problem when you don't want to have sex with her. And she's like, but I want to do it with you. Oh my God, what's going on? And so my thing is this, don't create those problems for yourself. You can find somebody that you're highly sexually attracted to, and at the same time, also can see yourself in a long-term partnership with. If you haven't found that person yet, that does not mean you need to force yourself to try to get with somebody just because you know it'll work long-term, even though you don't find them highly attractive physically. So hopefully that helps you out. Let's see. I got a comment here under one of my videos. So I got a comment under my pull-away test video. And in that video, I talk about how, in the dating phase, one of the ways you can prevent pull-away is to be talking to other women. That way you're not putting this one woman on a pedestal. And so this guy responded and said, what do you mean, quote, if you're only in the dating phase, you should be calling up other women? That doesn't make sense to me. Isn't that immoral? So to start off with, dating is not actually a thing that was in the Bible. Like, across the board, people weren't really like dating a bunch of people. There were guys and kings that had concubines, which was multiple women that they were hooking up with to have a bunch of kids. So we could argue that that's in the Bible, therefore this shouldn't be immoral. But I think so many guys confuse the dating phase with the relationship phase, and the things that you can do and get away with in the dating phase that you can't get away with in the relationship phase. In the dating phase, both of you are just trying to figure out if you can potentially see this being a long-term relationship. All right. But during that time, you guys don't have titles on each other. Yes, you might be getting close to her physically or kissing her or whatever, but you don't have a title. And so in my world, that means that while you're trying to get to know her, you can still be getting to know other women, because for all you know, this one could fizzle out, or you might have an okay connection with this one, but have a better connection with this 2 or 3 over here, right? And so the dating phase allows you to do that. Now, at the point that there's titles involved, then you can start talking about the immoral thing of like, oh, you're in a relationship and you're calling other women. Now, that could be considered cheating. But even that, there are a lot of people out there that are like, honestly, until they're the fiance or until there's a ring on the finger, all this is just getting to know somebody. So, and I don't operate like that. I operate if I'm in a dating relationship, if I'm in a relationship that I've called, she's my girlfriend, then I'm not trying to see her call other people. But some people don't operate like that. But the point is that, no, it's not immoral. It's not immoral to be looking at other offers while you're going after what you consider to be your most potential offer. And here's the thing. As much as guys get in their head about this, most women during the dating phase are dating you and probably at least 2 other people that they're talking to see which one of you 3 guys are going to work out. Anytime I start dating a woman, I assume she is still talking to other people until such a time as she comes to me and asks me, hey, so what are we? That lets me know that all the other options she thought she had, she's no longer considering. Until that happens, just like I assume she's seeing other people, it's perfectly fine for me to also do that. So to you, I say, guy, don't feel nervous or weird about wanting to talk to other women while you're talking to one particular woman, all right? Dating, in the dating phase, totally fine. Relationship, don't do that crap, all right? And then let's see, I got a couple more here. I got a couple more questions I'm going to answer here, guys. Again, if you have any questions you want to ask me in the chat, you can do so, and I'll be happy to answer them during the show. So this guy commented under my 3 reasons she's feeling. I'm sorry. Okay. This guy commented under my video, 3 things that she's feeling when she ignores you and your response when she pulls away. And he says, but what do I say if she asks me why I haven't been responding? Won't she think I moved on despite I am so hung up on her? He says, the only realized I haven't broken down from her 4 days of no response is because I'm a mechanic and it keeps me busy because I'm learning dawn to dusk. As soon as I put the wrench down and punch the clock, I'm back to being miserable again. Thinking of how I caught feeling so bad for this girl and she doesn't even realize it. Well, she definitely knows. She definitely knows, because based on just how you're talking in this message, she knows that you're obsessed with her, and women don't like that and they get turned off very easily. He says, maybe she does from the way I talk to her. Yes. He says, I'm not perfect. I'm just a laborer and I'm limited in what I can do. Some people will laugh at this, but I'm in Boston. She's in Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's far. Being this obsessed with a woman that is long distance, unless she's planning to move towards you, this is honestly a waste of time. Like across the board, the majority of long distance relationships do not work out unless one person is trying to make it a goal to move towards the other one. He says, I'm hopeless. Perhaps on my end, I have the willpower to make this work if she's on the same page. That's the thing. Dating is a 2-way street. So if she's not putting forth the same willpower, then all your energy, even if you're showing it to her, is bullcrap to her because she doesn't care because she's not putting the same energy forth. He says, other than that, I feel hopeless lately. I did get a text back after 4 days just now, but I don't know if I should even open her message, leave her on read and act like I was too busy. I just don't have that experience. So here's the thing, right? First of all, to answer his first question, what to do if she asks why he hasn't been responding. Well, most women I found don't do that. Most women, if they hit you up and you don't respond, they're usually not going to be hitting back like, hey, so you haven't talked to me in a few days. What's going on? Like, that's the thing that guys put in their head, thinking that, oh my God, if I do this thing, I don't want this horrible reaction to come from her. But the fact is, she's not reaching out to you that frequently. So you should not give a crap about what she thinks. Like, if she decides to text you and you decide to leave her on read for a couple of days, well, she left you on read for 4 days. You should not care, right? But more to the point, the fact that it's gotten to this point, it shows that you ultimately have put her on this high pedestal and that you're overly obsessed with her. And when women start to feel like a guy's overly obsessed with them, it puts them on pause because it puts their safety at danger. Because if you're a guy now that's constantly texting her and can't stop being around her, that shows a level of obsession that could lead to dangerous results. And there have been plenty of cases where guys get obsessed, end up unaliving women. So women have this thing in their head subconsciously like, oh my God, he's being too obsessed. I don't know what this is going to lead to, but I need to back off. And more importantly, I need to test to see if I don't respond to him for a few days, how's he going to react to me? Is he going to be patient? Is he going to be mad at me? Is he going to lash out? If so, I need to see that by pulling away. Now, when you don't do that, then they'll do what this woman did, which is come back to you after 4 days like, hey, what's going on? How are things with you? To see if you're going to, the first text you send back to her is going to be you lashing out at her. And so this is where I would err on the side of, you be patient, maybe like wait a day, then say, hey, so-and-so doing great, blah, 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 blah. How are things going? Now, it sucks with this guy because he's doing this long distance. And I would say if she was in the same town to try to set up a date, but that's not possible. And I've talked on the show before, too, about how, I think partly long distance relationships, guys set them up because it's an easy out. They don't have to do any actual work to try to get that woman to see them or meet them in person. And it's a cop out. It's a chicken way thing of doing things. Again, unless there's a plan in motion where you're going to move towards her or vice versa, then this whole thing is a waste of time. So I would say you have a texting pen pal. Congratulations. Try to keep that up as best you can, but also talk to other women in your area that you might have an actual shot at dating. And then the last thing I want to respond to, this is a woman that was really mad. I did a video called 10 Reasons Not to Date Single Moms. And in that video, I stress again that single moms are not bad people. It's just with single moms comes baggage, i.e. children. Children are going to take up her time, energy, and effort. And that's time, energy, and effort that is going to result in her not being able to spend a lot of time with you. Now, across the board, there are plenty of guys that are going to date single moms, and it could work out totally fine. But I did another video where there are men across the board that talked about their experiences of dating a single mom that they left in the comments under this video, where they say, yeah, dating single moms was a headache. I had court cases. I had the daughters try to say that I touched them inappropriately. All these various things, right? All these legitimate reasons as to why I caution against advising guys to date single moms. So I've had a lot of women that comment on that video that are up in their feelings, and this is one of them. And she said, there's a lot of jealousy and insecurity to unpack here. Why are you so jealous of children? So this is a woman that is trying to deflect from the points that I made that were logical points. And I get it, because the points that I made are logical. They're not feelings-based. They're not saying things like, well, if that single mom, say her husband died and she's just a mom that's taking care of 2 kids by herself, and you should go in there and blah, blah, blah. Because that was my scenario. My dad died. I grew up under a single mom. It didn't feel like it because my dad had pension from the Army coming to help, with us with our lives. But that was my scenario. And in that scenario, my mom was like, there was no way I was going to date. I wasn't going to date because I knew that raising you guys was going to take all my focus, and I didn't need the distraction. And also, I was already kind of happy with the guy that I'd been with. And so I felt that love. I don't need to get it from somebody else. But she recognized, going through our teenage years, what she called tenopause, that it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult as it is with our attitudes and our hormones changing. And now bring another guy into that scenario, and she's going to try to make time for that guy, but try to make time for our soccer practices, our baseball practices, our plays, our track meets, our camping things that we had to get ready for. Like we're, as kids, we're a busy freaking schedule. So when I say that, single moms have a lot on their hands, I grew up in that experience. So I'm not coming at this from a point of I'm being jealous of potential kids or being jealous or insecure. I'm coming from the standpoint of I grew up in it. I observed it. I recognized that even as a teenager, that being around kids is hard. I wasn't going to put myself out of that equation. I'm 15. I remember there was one time where I was in a conversation with my mom about something. We were having a fight. And midway through the conversation, I realized, oh crap, she's right. But I'm already stuck on my point. I got to keep arguing. That's the kind of stuff that teenagers and kids do, right? So to say that kids can't be a hassle and even the best of kids are going to be a handful to deal with, and a guy going into that scenario doesn't know what kind of single mom he's going to be dating. Is he going to be dating one that's going to allow him to take the reins, or one that's going to be like, well, they're my kids, so you don't do anything with them. You don't spank them. You don't discipline them. They could have a sketchy baby daddy that's in the picture that has all the reign and say about his kids and doesn't like you and wants to fight you every time he sees you. These are real scenarios that come up on top of the false allegations of various touching or saying that the potential stepdad, i.e. you, feels like a threat of some kind. Those things legitimately happen. So for me to stand here and be like, yeah, but you should totally try to do it. if I'm going to counsel a guy between dating a single mom or dating a woman that doesn't have a kid yet, I'd go with that one, because if nothing else, he can have a kid with that woman and be able to set disciplinary rules and not have the threat of, oh, this person did whatever under his belt or on his mind all the time. So these kind of comments I typically tend to ignore, because I across the board expect them. Women typically tend to be more emotional, and it hits at them because they're women and they don't want to think about, if I have a kid with some guy and that guy leaves me, that's going to be harder for me to date. And why wouldn't the guy want to date me? Sorry, we don't. Like, we don't. Dating is already hard enough without having to add kids to the equation. It's not a jealousy thing. It's not an insecurity thing. It's the reality that kids are tough. My brother's got 2 kids. I love him to death. My niece and nephew are fantastic. He's married. He's got kids. It's fantastic. And he's like, dude, I totally understand why you don't want kids, because they, as much as I love them, oh my God. So for me to try to tell guys to go into an oh my God scenario, not going to happen. Sorry. So anyway, hopefully, guys, that helps you guys out. That's all I got for today. Somebody said, thank you for your advice. Oh, this might be the guy I was responding to. He said, thank you for your advice. On top of that, she is a single mom, LOL. Dude, I've tried a couple of times to date a couple of single moms, like early on in my dating years, right? And schedules couldn't come together. There was one time where I tried to go over and the kid was there because she couldn't find a babysitter, and the baby daddy was out of the picture, so he wouldn't come over to pick the kid up. So we were trying to have a date with this 1-year-old there. It's not worth it. It's just really not. And you're going to have less drama. Well, across the board, men and women are different. Initially, early on, there's bound to be some kind of drama, but you don't want to add to that drama with a kid being in the scenario. That's all I'm saying. So if you can cut your losses, fantastic. There are plenty of women out there, but this also speaks back to, you have to have an abundant mindset. You got to build up the skill set to be able to talk to a variety of women, because women, even though there's generalities that women want, when you get into relationships, some women are going to want some things, others are going to want different things, and you have to kind of know how to play that out. But it's easier to do that with a woman that doesn't have kids. So just wanted to put that out there. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this show and for participating in the chat. I appreciate you all immensely. And I'll be back next. I do this show every Tuesday at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. So be sure to tune in. In the meantime, guys, watch my YouTube videos, become a subscriber, like my videos, and go to the website, check out my ebooks, audiobooks, and various programs that are all designed to help you date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. Also, go to the website and check out my albums. I got an album by my puppet Nan called No Girls For You. It's a soundtrack to my book. And also my Kevin Samuels Was Right album, which has been getting rave reviews. You can listen to the Kevin Samuels Was Right album at the link in the description, as well as at the website. That's all I got for today, guys. I'm Harry Wilmington, and I'll catch you guys with the next one. I'm out. Peace.
Call this beat Will Smith, cause it slaps hard. Hear it